All right, you know what it is. This is the Big Douglas Show. It is a recap Friday, a victory Friday, if you will. I'm very excited about that. Talk a little bit about it. Brought on my good buddy Wale from the Urban Sports Team. Wale, how are you?
I'm good, man. Well, I'm glad to be on. It's. I guess it's a positive day. I guess.
We'll see. Let's start out that way and see where we end up at. And for the first time on the Big Douglas Show is Lou Holder. Lou, big fan of yours. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the invitation. It's always good to um, be wanted to come on somebody's airways to talk about sports. So thank you so much for having me, Doug.
Absolutely. Lou, you recently started a YouTube page, the host of the Holder Hangout. Tell me a little bit about it, what you got going on over there, and maybe what you like about being able to have the YouTube instead of some of the other platforms, because I know you've done it all.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Well, I just felt that this was a way to be organically me. I interview the people that I want to interview. There's enough people out there covering a lot of the X's and O's. I like doing the other side of the sports. So just recently, I was interviewing Tress Way about the music that they play out on the field. He gave a funny response to, "Hey, look, I'm just a kicker. I don't get to choose the stuff on there, So he who controls the music controls a lot more. So
Okay.
and let's just say that the quarterbacks are not controlling the music on the field.
No,
So
I get that.
just stuff like that. I have interviewed. It's not just the Commanders. I mean, Commanders of what I've been doing. I came here 20 years ago to be a beat reporter with Fox for the Washington Redskins at the time. So football is what I know, but there's so many other things that I am involved with. I played soccer in college, and one of my teammates in college was Alexi Lalas, who went on to be one of the most decorated U.S. soccer players in history. So he was in town recently. We got together to grab a bite. So we talked about the USA national team and getting ready for the World Cup in Qatar and our time at Rutgers. And, just went to the Maryland Hall of Fame last week. Got some interviews with Vernon Davis and Christy Tolliver, who has one of the most iconic shots in Maryland history. So just talking to her about that, just different things. I do some of my personal life too, and I worship at a church here in Prince George's County, the First Baptist Church of Glenarden, and
FBCG.
yeah, so we have a lot of stuff going on there. Recently, I was a moderator. We don't talk about this enough, but we need to be talking about this. Your exit plan. A lot of people get jammed up because they have not planned for their death. And then when it comes, it causes a lot of stress and a lot of chaos for everybody else. So I just sat on a panel for a symposium that's going to air tomorrow called the Exit Plan Symposium. And they're talking about wills, burial plots, things of that nature, the advanced directive for medical care, right? Who's going to make those decisions for you, right? That's all part of the Holder Hangout. I thought it was just very, very fascinating. A lot of people do not plan for their death. So why don't you just plan for your death now so you can enjoy your life, right? So we don't want to talk about it's like, I don't want to plan. Well, why aren't you? Because if you don't, then there's courts, there's probates, the families get destroyed because they don't know what's going on. So it's sports and a lot more for me. I guess because I have done it a lot, got my Emmy Award, done a lot in sports. I'm trying to think of other ways that I can impact the community that I live in. And I'm much more than just the sports. But I am here to talk about sports today with y'all.
Wait, you piqued my curiosity before we switched to football. What position did you play on the pitch?
I put it this way. I was really, really good as a forward. I was all state, all region. But then I got to college and all Americans were at my position. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get on the field by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And I ended up playing in the back with Alexi Lala. So I played left and right fullback. I just wanted to get on the field, so I had all Americans at my position, and that wasn't happening for me. But I could track somebody down and stop them from scoring. So I ended up my career playing hybrid, like midfield, defense. But at the end of the day, we went to 2 Final Fours, went to the national championship game. I'm still in therapy because we lost to UCLA. So every time I see one of those guys, they have my ring, Doug. They have my ring. So we were doing co-championships in college soccer. And then my junior year, they decided to go away. And the NCAA said the school with the highest attendance would host the Final Four, right?
Okay.
We were in New Jersey in December hosting the Final Four, right? The NCAA said, oh, no, we're not doing that again. We're not doing that. We're not having soccer in December for our premier showcase, right? That year, there was a tie for the national championship. He said, we're not doing that either. We're not doing it. The next year, we go to the Final Four. We go to the national championship game, and instead of having co-champions, we had to have a penalty shoot-off, and we lost to UCLA, right? So, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, I'm telling everybody I'm a champion. I'm not telling everybody we shared it. Now I can't even say that. But it was fun. It was fun. Like the guys in Alabama, we didn't lose a lot. We didn't lose a lot. Yeah. We rarely lost at Rutgers. We were good. We were really, really good. So, but that's my soccer exploits, and kicking it with Alexi and talking about this national team and the frustrations and how they need to get out of the groups, and this now being in Qatar in November and December, that's new. That's really, really new. So we'll see. We'll see. The overall thought is that this team is very young. They should get out of their group, but it's the World Cup that's going to be coming here that all of those players will be in their prime, and that would be the best showing that U.S. has had in a while. So we talked about that. We talked about our GOATs. My GOAT is Pele. His is Maradona. We all agree. We both agree that if you haven't won a World Cup for your country, you can't be considered a GOAT. And Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, they're very talented, but neither one of them have won World Cup. Pele has 3. Pele has 3. Maradona has 1. He's a flawed GOAT. That's why Alexi likes him. Pele is just the standard for me. 3 World Cups, but he wasn't. Just because you didn't see him play doesn't mean he wasn't the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
So we've had. I have those debates. I have those debates with young soccer players all the time who watch all the highlights on ESPN, but Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo don't have anything, nothing. Goose egg. They don't have one World Cup. In that sport, you should be judged by World Cups. You got to have at least one to be in the conversation. You have to at least lead your country to the biggest prize in international football, and neither one of them have done it. So if one of them do it this coming World Cup, maybe more Messi than Cristiano Ronaldo, but until then, I can't really have that discussion with people.
I asked you two gentlemen, we'll get on to the football now.
Yeah.
I asked you two gentlemen before we started to think of one word that wraps up the game from yesterday. I'll start while you're thinking about it a little bit. Mirage is what I think of. I think about a franchise, a fan base that is walking through the desert, thirsty for water, and sees an oasis. And is very excited, but it is a mirage because that is not there. That is what the game last night felt to me. Wins are wins. I'll take them. I'm not ready to move on to draft status yet. Although if we wanted to have that argument, we certainly could. I understand the concept. So for me, that game was a mirage. Wole, what is the word that comes to mind when you think of the game last night?
Trash. Trash product. just all around in terms of just, you're going, I know it's a short week, but to be that incompetent in terms of moving the football, and it's a consistent theme to me. I mean, you see improvement with the defense, but in terms of the overall product, it's trash. And the only reason why they even scored a touchdown was because of a muffed special teams play. So when I look at when I look at Thursday night's performance, it was trash.
Simple enough. Lou, what comes to mind?
I think I can describe that game as I can describe the whole season, maddening. The whole thing has just been maddening. I've covered this team for 20 years now, and there's been some times where I've come into a season and was like, these people just don't have enough talent. I can't say that this year. There's talent all over the place, and they're still getting, they're another word I would use is fortunate that Chicago's worse than they are. I mean, that was just ineptitude on Chicago's part that they didn't put that game away. Fields, I mean, I thought it was just amazing how they just gave them opportunities to stay in the game. But maddening is for me because Scott Turner does some good things, and then he just, whatever hair I have in my head, I want to pull it out because I'm like, how do you not see that, right? They moved you from on the field to up in the booth, and I can see it. Everybody in the press box can see it. And the thing about this fan base, there's enough of us that are educated enough to see one of the best to ever do it in Joe Jackson Gibbs. So we can't be fooled like maybe in some other markets like a Jacksonville or whatever where they haven't had. We have seen one of the best orchestrators of talent ever in sports. He's in the Hall of Fame in 2 different sports.
Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame in football and in NASCAR, right? He's a leader of men. He knew how, he knows how to, it's just amazing. So any person that comes in here, coach, coordinator, that's the standard that you're living up to. And this fan base knows when we see maddening and, like you said, trash and mirage. We know because we've tasted the Oasis. We have seen stuff that looks good. We know this fan base knows. That's why, for me, it's so maddening because for the first time in maybe 7-8 years, there's talent everywhere. There's 5 first rounders in the defense alone, and for them to be 2-4, and the way that they won those games, Jacksonville's a lot better. I'm glad they got them when they did because Jacksonville's a lot better.
That's right.
Everybody in the division has gotten better. So it's just maddening to me how they are not, the too many men on the field or not enough men on the. I mean, there was just so many things that went on yesterday. I was like, is this week 6? Is it? Like,
and the sad thing, Lou, is we were talking about this before you joined us, just me and Wale, but you got to have a little gray in your beard like we do to actually remember Joe Gibbs and that taste of the good stuff because, Wale and I talk to young podcasters all the time that don't have any idea. Like 2012 and 2016 are their Super Bowls. And that's what really frustrates me for the fan base is that there's a young group in this fan base that is hungry for something good to happen. And I feel bad for them that they just can't make it happen. And I don't see where they're heading in the right direction. And I think that's what frustrates me more than anything is I have no idea what the plan is right now. I have no idea where we're going. They seem to just be adjusting on the fly, which really makes me upset. The coaching staff has to be forced into things. Well, I mean, they had to. Jackson had to be so bad that they put him on the sideline. Finally, moved Benjamin St. Juice outside. I mean, it's things like that they get forced into doing. Brian Robinson gets healthy; they're forced to share carries. I mean, they didn't give Gibson nearly enough carries either. They get stuck on things. I don't understand it.
To your point, and this is something like what Lou said, I totally agree. Is like this fan base isn't like if you watch this team over the years, growing up watching this team, we've seen greatness. So I'm with you, Lou. Like we've seen greatness when it comes to Joe Jackson Gibbs. But to your point, Doug, in terms of like not making adjustments, like I'm literally watching the game, and this guy just coming off a gunshot wound. All right, that's one. and you're pretty much giving him the bulk of the carries the first half, like for the bulk of the carries. All right, let's say the first half and a little bit of the third quarter. Gibson is he's a 1,000-yard rusher last season. Regardless of what we think about his fumbling and his issues with fumbling, whatnot, he's an effective running back. You know what I mean? Why not split those carries in the first half? Have this running mentality, this running attack. And what kills me is because in the history of Coach Rivera, and even in Carolina, where he had a D'Angelo Williams, he had a Jonathan Stewart, it was a thunder and lightning approach with the running back. Mm-hmm. You have the situation, you have an opportunity to do this here in Washington, and he's the power back. You could use that. You can run that style. So I was confused. Scott Turner utilized that type of offense with those two running backs. Kind of like confused me throughout the whole game. Throughout the first half, to be honest with you, because I think if you did that, the outcome, the comfortability of Carson Wentz would have been a lot better for this team offensively speaking. But I'm with you. That's what bothers me about this team. You have fans. You have personalities out here, personalities who played the game of football, who have stated this, like have stated certain things, like obvious things, like play this individual, do this, do that, and then they're stubborn. They don't do it. Once they do it, there's improvement. Like this happens within this regime. For 3 years with this regime, this has been a consistent theme. And I'm like, I know that you hear the arrogance, like, well, we know better than you all. Do you really? Do you? Because it doesn't seem like it.
Lou, there's only one man in the league that's got more power than Ron Rivera, and that's Bill Belichick. Were you surprised? I mean, not surprised. They had to give him that power to get him as the coach. Do you believe in that setup? Can it work?
No, I think he he needs to concentrate on the coaching, right? I think that's part of the problem is that the player personnel stuff, we haven't gotten that right. That offensive and defensive coordinator, those were his selections, right? The offensive line, Norwell, that's all his selections, right? He just needs to be coaching. And I don't think the player personnel and being the buck stops with him. I don't know if that's the right approach in many organizations. I just see, if you can indulge me for a second, that team that's up 95, the Philadelphia Eagles. I've just seen how they have. It's been put right before us, the blueprint, right? Jeff Lurie, the owner, made a huge mistake by giving Chip Kelly all of that, just what you were talking about. He ended up stripping that team. He got rid of Shady McCoy. He got rid of Deshaun Jackson. He got rid of Jeremy Maclin. I mean, he just decimated that team that was just very, very good, right? They fired him. I can't believe that Chip Kelly got another job in San Francisco and then another job at UCLA. I mean, I just can't believe that, but that I digress. So he learned his lesson. He gave Howie Roseman, more power to do what he was supposed to do. He left that to not the, whatever. They got Doug Peterson, right? They win a Super Bowl, right? Doesn't work out, whatever. Howie Roseman is making these choices, whatever. They get this young guy, Nick Sirianni. They're playing for him. He's in his second year, right? He's in his second year. Doug Peterson has Jacksonville playing immediately good football in his first year, right? So with all that being said, Doug, I'm telling you that it's the coaching. It's the coaching. I don't think he has a lot more on his plate, right? And he needs to be concentrating on the coaching. So to answer your question, does it work? Maybe in New England it works. I don't know many other places where it does, and it's definitely not. I don't think it's working well here. I think there needs to be a separation of church and state. I think
We're the only other franchise in the league, to my knowledge, that does it. Even
Seattle. Does Seattle do it?
No, because Pete Carroll's got John Schneider there. And,
Schneider.
And
that's
if
right.
you believe him for what it's worth, Schneider has full control of that. Same thing with Andy Reid. They were going to give him the power. He didn't want it.
He didn't want it. Yeah.
He didn't want it. He understands the concept. There's a difference in all of that doesn't work. I'm with you. I don't think it works. But Do you believe in Ron Rivera if he's just the coach, Lou?
I actually do. I don't think that Ron Rivera is a horrible coach. But then I also ask the question here: if you do get rid of him, where do you go from there? Right? Where do you go
Sure.
from there? That's what I'm saying. So I'm thinking of, is he the right coach for this? Like you said, if you strip all that other stuff, I do think that for where we are right now, Ron Rivera is. I wouldn't want to see them move on unless he loses the team. They're still playing for him. They're still playing for him in some way, shape, or form. So I wouldn't want to see them start all over again, because who are they going to get? Right? Who are they going to get that's going to come into this environment and succeed? Right? There's no. There was times where I was like, first of all, let me just state this: Eric Bieniemy needs to be a head coach in somebody's team immediately. Right?
Yes.
He gets penalized every year because he's in the Super Bowl or whatever. But I actually think that Andy Reid is telling him, just wait around and you're going to be the coach here. That's what I actually think is happening. But there's so many young talent out there, right? That are, look at what's happening in New York.
Yeah.
You can find these young coaches, but the question is, will a young coach be able to succeed here? I don't think so. Not with this ownership group, not where it's currently constructed. Ron Rivera is he might pull your hair out and you might not like him and some of the stuff, but this fan base, again, if you get rid of him, where are you going next? When you do that, you've automatically started the clock another 3-4 years before. Because I don't think it's a Doug Peterson situation or a Dable situation or a Sirianni situation where this one coach can come in and immediately turn around this roster. I just don't see it. That's just me.
Well, on this show, I'm a big fan of the compliment sandwich. So we have dug in on the team a little bit. What is something that you watched last night that at least you can say, you know what, I see that, and it inspires me to be excited about the team?
Oh man, I love the improvement. Well, one, the improvement in the defense, it hasn't gotten better. I think people have kind of, like, little by little. If you really want to be honest, I know a lot of people, kind of trash on Del Rio, but to be honest, that unit has improved over the last 3 to 4 weeks. To be honest with you, even the Eagles game was improved. It's just that they were on the field for a long time. But I would say the defensive, the front four. Definitely the front four. Sweat has definitely taken his game to another level the last 2 games. I know a lot of people will say that he's played against lesser tackles, but still he's brought his game. He has stepped his game up. I mean, Jonathan Allen, to me, has been the MVP of this whole squad. Like, had an interception, had a sack. I mean, he continues, makes plays. Deron Payne, too. Like, he wants that bag. You can tell he's played at a high level. Abado was amazing.
Shout out Nate Coleman, who brought up Effie Abada to me a couple of weeks ago.
Abada has been
if he gets starter reps, watch him.
But you know what? It's funny because, like, if you listen to, like, one of the main personalities in this area, Doc Walker, has been talking about him throughout camp and even to this day. So, like, but he's been amazing. He looks like a guy that could be a real player for this team. But to me, that front four is, if you're going to be positive of anything about that game yesterday, it's the front four. Like, I felt like they were controlling the game, and they made Justin Fields very uncomfortable.
Lou, what about you? Wale, they're still the easy one. So we put you up against it. But Lou, what do you think? Was there something that stood out to you yesterday in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, Brian Robinson. I mean, the whole story. We interviewed him in the locker room. I mean, just the mentality of those Alabama. I mean, they haven't lost this much in their entire college career, right? So they're just wired differently. He makes you believe in this running game. He really, really does. He's his first touchdown. Everything's a bunch of firsts for him, and it almost brings a tear to your eye, because everybody who knows what happened with Sean knows that thing could have gone totally different. A couple of inches on that gunshot wound, and that same femur artery that Sean bled out for Sean, it could have happened to him. So to see him actually getting it a chance to play, and man, he's actually very, very good as a rookie. That's something to me, to answer your question, something that's positive for me. That's not, I agree with Wale. That is the defensive line has been the most pleasant thing for me, and they're hungry. They're hungry, but this rookie, he's going to be one to watch. I just hope that they remember McKissick turned down Buffalo to stay here.
Good point.
So I think that Scott Turner et al. Needs to find a way running back to committee so we don't burn this guy out, right? Let him be your bang, 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 but you need to be able to find places for Gibson, places for McKissick to do the other things, so they can't just concentrate on Robinson. I think Robinson's going to get you a lot of places, but they need to conserve him. As you said, he's coming off of some not just physical, some traumatic stuff. And I don't think that this rookie can be considered the savior of the offense.
Yes.
That's a great way to put it too, Lou, because that's what it looked like yesterday. It looked like they looked at it. Ron went to Brian and said, "B. Rob, go out here and save us, big fella. Go out here and do it so we look good." And to your point, I think he has the chops to do it, but the way they leaned on him, I thought was odd, at least.
It wasn't fair.
It was just
wasn't fair.
And to your point about McKissick, like, he's got to be upset. I don't care if he ever says it out loud, but you're right. I mean, he was up there already buying a coat in Buffalo when he decided he didn't have to, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that that was his choice. He liked the way things were looking in Washington. Why not? Because the way they used him last year. I mean, I'm sure he was expecting even bigger workload. I bet he's averaging 3 targets a game this year, and it's ridiculous. And part of that is, I mean, like last night, it's easy to forget Washington had 1 possession in the first quarter.
Yeah. 1
possession. So, I mean, I understand you want Terry to get 10 targets and you want Samuel to get 10 targets. We want, McKissick to get 10 targets. But if you only have 1 possession in the first quarter, there's only so many opportunities to get those guys the ball. One guy that I saw yesterday that really didn't, it's odd because he didn't really do much, but I think we saw what they see in Cole Turner yesterday too.
Yeah,
I mean, you talk about catch radius. That is exactly why they brought guys like him in, so that when Wentz is high up the middle of the field, which he was on that pass that he caught, you can see that he can go up there and get it. I'm excited about what that tight end room looks like.
Can I throw in one more,
Please.
like an A? For me, if it's one, Brian, the 1A for me, and it's not just his play on the field, it's his steady leadership that I see off the field. Terry McLaurin was worth the money that they paid for him. And the reason why I say this is that it's the soft skills that I feel that this guy, he's in his fourth year now, and he's actually he was already mature. He was already mature and understanding just the way he understands that this is a up and down season. He's telling the young guys the same way. His locker is right next to Jahan Dotson. So he's teaching him. I think that the money that they paid him was not just for his unbelievable football ability. He's one of the leaders on that team. And I feel he's not having the greatest of years yet. But I just feel that what a lot of people don't see is the stuff in the locker room and the stuff that he's teaching these young guys that we will never, ever, ever, ever understand the importance of when it comes to leaders of the team. If Jonathan Allen is that on the defense, to me, it's Terry McLaurin. It's not even Carson Wentz. It's Terry McLaurin who is the leader on that offense, right? He's been here for 4 years. He got that bag, as well as he got that bag, right? And he hasn't embarrassed the uniform. He hasn't embarrassed us. He hasn't done anything sketchy. We don't hear him in the news. We don't do any of that. All he does is play football. and he's one that we finally kept a talent here that we drafted, and I would like to put the spotlight kind of on him, on the side, like, hey, watch the money that Washington has paid for this man and see how it's manifesting itself off the field as much as it's doing on the field.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more, Lou. And I was honestly one of the guys that at least thought they should entertain what the package was, right? I mean, wide receivers were catching first round picks in a hurry this offseason. But to your point, Lou, they were never going to do that. They were going to always pay him as long as he was going to take the money, because he is one of those key guys in your locker room, one of those franchise leaders that kind of distinguishes himself from everybody else. We have a couple of those. I think Charles Leno Jr. is another one of those guys that has really helped them in the locker room, with a line that is constantly shifting. I think maybe they finally figured it out. I'd still like to see a little Chris Paul in at guard. But the line they put up yesterday was better.
Yeah, it was better.
It's gonna have to be a lot better against Green Bay, though.
Yeah, agreed. You have
those Bears couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen, they could have easily lost that game last night. And when Fields is running down the field at the end there, you're just thinking to yourself, well, it's not what we want, but it's probably what we deserve. And then, we got the other. I'm curious, do a couple things before we wrap up here. Wole, better chance that a coordinator gets fired or Wentz gets benched?
I would say, to be honest with you, though, I'm all about hashtag fire Scott Turner. I would say, to be honest with you, just being real, it'd be the quarterback being benched, because at the end of the day, especially because like I said earlier, the defense is getting better, so you can't, without reasoning, you can let Jack Del Rio stay for the season. But in terms of an in-season fire, it's hard to fire an offensive coordinator because you don't know who's next. Like, you can say Zampese, the quarterback coach, but it's not like you have somebody on the staff that you feel like that's up and coming to be the next guy who can turn things around. So the more realistic way of looking at it is it would have to be a quarterback change.
I think you're right, and I say that, and people say all the time, fire the offensive coordinator, right? And that changes, and I understand that completely. And that may change which plays get called when.
Yeah.
And it may change the way a guy feels about game flow, like, say, Turner is a pass the ball to get to the run coach.
Yeah.
The next man up may not exactly do it that way, but they're not going to change a system in the season, right? People just assume, well, we're bringing a new system and we'll throw it all over the yard. They spent a whole offseason figuring out a system. They're not going to change it. Lou, I'm curious your thoughts on this.
I disagree with both of you. I don't think that the money that they spent for Carson Wentz, and I don't think that if Carson Wentz was not putting up numbers, right? There's just certain plays that I love Taylor Heineke. He's just not making those plays.
I agree. No, I totally agree with you.
Making those plays. So I think that there is there's a three-headed monster going on with that offense. There's Carson Wentz has got to play better, and we know that. Yeah. That offensive line is maddening. Again, there's that word, maddening. The offensive line is maddening, and I knew it in training camp. I knew it before. I was like, look, this guy needs a lot of time. He can't get a lot of time, but he needs a couple more seconds than this offensive line can give him. And then there's that offensive coordinator. So I actually don't think Carson Wentz is playing putrid. I think he could be playing a lot better.
Agreed.
But I just don't feel that when you ask the question, what would be first to go? I don't know if it'd be they spent so much money to bring that guy, and they includes the owner of the team, who, as we read through all the reports, is probably still involved with stuff. They invested a lot in this one quarterback who we know from the other two stops that he was, his kind of confidence is a little shaky, right? So to bench him, you can't go back to him.
That's true. So true.
If you bench him, you cannot go back to him. It's got to be
Yeah.
Heineke, and then right after that, it's got to be Howe.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, see, now I disagree with
You
you there, Lou.
cannot go back to Wentz, right?
I agree there.
As fragile as he is after what happened in Philly and Indianapolis, you got to ride him through the entire year. He's not hurt. Look at the block he threw yesterday. That boy wants to play.
He's a tough one.
That boy wants to play. I don't know how you bench that when he's still overthrowing people. But Carson Wentz, what did Denny Green? Cue Denny Green. He is who we thought he was. Right?
But he's not, Lou. I got to be honest. Like, he looks a little washed to me. Like, he tried to scramble at the end there on the quarterback keeper the other way. No legs. That is not the same guy that I recall wiggling out of everything we had when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles.
But I'm not looking at his time with the Eagles. I'm looking at that year in Indianapolis. That time with the Eagles, he had Zach Ertz. He had Jason Kelsey. He had a lot of, and that was injuries ago and things of that nature. Yes. I'm talking about the comp for Carson Wentz was that year in Indianapolis. That's what we were getting, right? We weren't getting the Philly. We weren't getting the Philly. The Philly didn't even want that, right? Yeah. We were getting the Indianapolis version, and you got to have.
Which is better than this, though.
That's the comp. That's the comp, and I'm saying that this guy has a bigger arm than Heineke. He can, look at that. Look at the Ami Brown from the from the Tennessee game. The guy can get it there if the offensive line can give him some time. So I can't believe I'm saying this. Carson Wentz does give you hope at sometimes, but then he does some boneheaded stuff like, the check downs. There was a couple of Tom Brady is not as mobile either, but Tom Brady never gets touched because boom, boom, he's out. Yes. Carson Wentz holds on to the ball way too much, and some of that might be scheme, whatever, but I just feel that this quarterback gives you a bit more that I would say that it would be somebody else before the quarterback, right? And again, it's the owner, it's the ownership group. They wanted somebody of some type of oomph to fill that Commander's uniform in the first year out. I do not think benching him would be a good look if he's not playing horrible. And I don't think he's playing horrible. He's just not as good as the other teams in the division, which was the question that was asked.
Yeah. And the other thing that you brought up, Lou, which I disagree with, is whenever Wentz goes down, or not down, but out, to me, it's got to be Howe. We know what Heineke is, and maybe he's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and that's not a knock. That's a good thing, I would say. But we know who he is. We've seen everything Heineke is. I don't think there's any more ceiling left. Got to see what Hal is so that you know whether you're back to the drawing board next year. The problem again this year is if they start winning games, great. But if they can't win, and they've got some tough games coming up, I mean, the offensive line next week is not the offensive line that they saw last night. I can assure you that. But you got to see what you have in Hal. Problem is, your bye week when you usually make that is like the latest in the league, right? It's not till like week 12 or something crazy like that.
Like 14, I think. Washington's bye week,
right?
Yeah, so but they have kind of like a mini bye now.
Yeah, because for
they
this,
do, but they're not. I don't see them making changes.
No.
Right.
No.
Rivera's dug in. He's all in. I mean, I just got off the conference call with him. He's so encouraged about they're right there and stuff like that. So again, I'm just thinking about all the quarterbacks that to me, Scott Turner. I hate to go back to this, but they had O'Connell in the building, right? So
I was there with you. I was there with you. I remember.
Yeah. So you bring in Turner, and Rivera bring in Fitzpatrick, who lasted one series, and then they had to go to Heineke. So okay, you're saying to yourself, okay, you finally got a quarterback, right? How come they're not doing more? I wish that Scott Turner would be more creative, more exotic, because I've seen it with all that talent in there. No way they should have lost that game to Tennessee. You're on the 2-yard line with 19 seconds left, and you have all of those speedsters run some type of chaos all in there, right, that you can get the 2 yards that you need. I just feel that Scott Turner, my eyes are still very bright looking at him every single game. There is just too much talent not to get more out of that offense.
And to Warren's point, that's why I put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Fitzpatrick says that he knew that last year, that they just refused. And when I heard Wentz didn't have the opportunity to audible, and the response from Scott Turner was, "I got plays I like to run. We like to run those plays." I hate that. And Wole knows that I was the biggest Turner enthusiast I was.
Yeah.
I am slowly, and I've sort of the line's been coming down here with my patience for Scott Turner. Yeah, the first half of the Jacksonville game, boom, through the roof.
It was good. It was good. It was gravy.
Stuff everywhere. The motion that we wanted, 2 running backs on the field at the same time, 13 personnel, 12 personnel, all the juicy stuff that the people love. None of it.
But then there was then there was one game that Terry McLaurin didn't have his first target till the third quarter.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy. But you know what?
Are you serious?
It's crazy. But this is what I always say. Like Doug talking about the first game. NFL, the teams have tape. This is what happens. Teams have tape, and then so once you put tape out there, they get used to it. So now they're going to scheme to that, and now it's up to Scott Turner to adjust. And it's wild. Like we talk about, tailoring things to your quarterback. In terms of the offensive coordinator, we saw Shanahan literally take a whole offseason knowing who he's going to draft in RG3 and tailoring a whole offense around that said quarterback. It wasn't that we're going to create it. It wasn't like I have this system, he's going to fit into our system. No, I got this quarterback who has a unique skill set. I am going to tailor everything around this quarterback so he can be successful. So my issue, like going into the season, this is year 3. It's a big year, regardless of what Ron wants to say. You identify the quarterback that you want to coordinate him. He was in Indy. He looked at tape. He did the analytics. He wanted this quarterback.
He did the analytics.
Yeah, he wanted this quarterback. He said this. So if you did all of that, how come you didn't create any offseason? You put everything together. You looked at the film in Philadelphia. You look at the film in Indy, because those are the offenses. He ran that same offense in both places, because you mentioned Doug Peterson and Frank White. Those are dudes. Right. Those are dudes that coached in Philadelphia. He went to the Colts, and Frank White was the coach with Indy. How come you didn't bundle all that together and create an offense that was for a Carson Wentz? So he's used to the terminology. He has his favorite plays. Get him comfortable in a system where he had success in. That's what bothers me. Like, instead of saying we're going to run Scott Turner's total offense.
Yep. No, but we're not the only ones that do that, though. Unfortunately, I mean,
I know. I agree.
Look at the Bears last night. I mean,
and that's why they're struggling. The same thing with the Bears. Same thing. Yeah, I'm saying this is like the Bears are in a rebuild, a total rebuild. This is year 3 now. Like, this is what I'm saying. This is year 3. Like, you got to show progression. You know what I mean? And if you want to take your team to the next level, you got a new quarterback. You got to build around that. Like, you got to build around that and do what he does best. Like, this is a whole new offense. But how come you're not tailoring things to this man within this offense? That's all I'm saying. That's what an offensive. To me, when I criticize Scott Turner, people defend him and say, "Well, it's the quarterback. Your job." And I coach basketball, and when I have certain kids, they can't do certain things, and it may be simplistic to you, but I know they can't do certain things. I tailor it to what they do best, so they can be successful. As a coach, you tailor whatever you can do for that player to be successful, regardless if it isn't something you want to do. I like playing man defense. My kids don't play good man defense. I play a 2-3 zone, and they're good at a 2-3 zone. I want to play man. You get what I'm saying? But I make sure I coach up zone for them.
Yeah, it's not about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes.
Before we get out of here, Lou, I'm curious. The ESPN report comes out. We do this all the time. There is nothing in there. I think we around town have always known that the league wasn't going to do anything because Dan sees red and hires lawyers and investigators. And I've always thought that the reason that they never boosted them out of there was because they don't want their own closets emptied. There was nothing in that expose, if you will, and it was long, and I read the whole thing. Nothing really new in there. Certainly nothing in there that would suggest to anybody that Dan's moving out, and he's certainly not selling the team on his own accord, right, Lou?
Yeah, I think that, again, this fan base is very knowledgeable, and we know what's going on. When I saw the pictures of him in Dallas with Jerry Jones and everything
wearing blue.
And I just was like, you know what, this is just gonna have to play out in its own way. I don't know what's going to happen, but me trying to figure out what's going to happen, I'm done. I'm like, I'm numb. I'm numb to the whole thing. I just know that you got to think that he's bad for business for the owners. But like you said, if he, if these reports are coming out, it's just, Dan Snyder's like the modern day Nino Brown. If I'm going down, I'm taking a whole bunch of people with me.
Yep.
That's how that movie played out at the end. He gave a.
Or it could be Denzel Washington Training Day.
Yeah. He's putting cases on all of it. 23-hour lockdown. Shoe program.
Exactly.
Pelican Bay.
Oh
man. So it's just, when you see these owners and what happens in all these other leagues, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. All the stuff that goes on. And I just kind of that again, going full circle. That's why I did my old holder hangout. I got into to do positive journalism. I can't really, that kind of stuff depresses me. So I like doing other type of journalism because I'm first of all, he who has no sin, let him cast the first stone. I am not perfect. So that's Dan's business. That's the league's business. I do know that some would say that this franchise would do a lot better with a brand new start. But they gave that man ownership of the team until he, that's on a different pay grade than Doug or while for any of us on here. So yeah. I just think it's sad though, because it's almost like, to me, remember the whole malaise we were in when Kirk Cousins kept signing those extensions, and we're like, get on with it. Is he gonna be the guy or not? Right? I think there was one radio show was Al Galdi. He kept playing this clip. Kirk Cousins, cha cha cha. They were doing this dance all over the place. Cha cha cha. I loved it. It was like, here we go, Kirk Cousins, cha cha cha. Yeah. And it was for years we felt hostage because I was like, you know what? He wasn't RG3. He was the other person in that draft, right? So it was like they kept trying to make RG3 but Kirk Cousins ended up being more productive than their guy, right? But we had to keep going through all of that until something burst at the end. Something's going to have to burst with this Dan Snyder ownership thing. And I don't know where it's going to happen. I'm in a malaise. How about you guys? How do you feel?
Go ahead, Wale. Well, I'll tell you, I feel trapped. Right? And that's why I always try to tell folk, like, we root for the team, and the players. The owner, to me, the owner is the steward of the franchise, right? It is his job to run it and take care of it. And one day he will pass on and somebody else will, but it'll still be burgundy and gold. And to me, that's what we root for, is the home team and the burgundy and gold. And is the owner who we want? No, but we don't get those decisions. We don't get any of the decisions other than we choose to root for the team. And I will continue to do that.
Yeah, I just care. I care about the on-field product, but he's hindering the on-field product. That's what bothers me. So,
yes, Chris Baker says all the time, people aren't coming here of their own accord as long as the owners are.
Yeah, and that too. And also, like, the people you hire as your coaches and whatnot, who you give power to in terms of helping you have a winning product. So for me, that's what bothers me. It's like at first, there's terrible owners in the NFL, NBA, and all the sports. There are terrible owners. But some of them, in terms of what they stand for, but they win games, and people deal with it. So for me, it's just like, if you're not creating a winning product, then I have an issue as a fan. I have an issue. You know what I mean? In terms of, you see other sports teams with this professional style of winning football games and the consistency. Jack Kent Cook wasn't the best person in the world, but he won football games. He had the right people he had the right people running the ship here. You know what I mean? So
Well,
That
and
helps.
what I don't get,
I have to caution one thing, that the media that we are in, sometimes it's not altogether truthful. There's always three sides to a story.
Sure.
Their side, your side, and the truth.
Yep.
So I just want to get to the truth of everything going on.
Agreed.
I mean, when I read reports like you just said, Doug, that when you read through the expose, you didn't hear anything like that. I don't know how many people are embellishing stuff in reports and stuff like that. That I really don't know. Right. So that's where I have to distance myself, because I don't know how much of this is true journalism, rehashed journalism. I don't know, fake news. I don't know how much of it is.
Yeah.
I just know that it keeps coming up, which is, like you said, trapped, frustrating.
Yeah. And what I've never really understood over the course of at least the last 4 years. Well, it's been a long time, but I can't imagine that Dan Snyder is having fun being the owner of the Washington Commanders, which is insanity. You are the owner of an NFL franchise. It should be glorious, and you should be enjoying every minute of it. And I can't, other than just being able to look his nose down on folk, I don't understand how you could possibly be enjoying being the owner of the franchise. And that's it's just insane.
I mean, his personality. I mean, it's a personality thing, but we can definitely get into that if we wanted to. But and it's hard, obviously, because he grew up a Redskins Commanders fan. Like, he grew up, that. I'm sure it's hard on him, to be honest with you. But also, it is a personality thing that kind of makes it. I'm sure that it makes it difficult on himself, to be honest with you, and that's the problem. He has to fight with himself. To be honest with you, that's what it is. He has to fight with himself.
Well, you wouldn't know it maybe from the show today, but it was a victory last night. And I will take a second today to put on my Commander shirt and be happy to wear it. Not have to explain to folk that it was a loser, and I don't care. So I think we'll get on with that. Fellas,
what do you think of the uniforms?
You know what? I am a huge fan of the white uniforms. Well, we've only seen the burgundy once, so I mean, I'm not sure whether I like them as much. I like the fact they can mix and match them. I'd like to see the white jersey with the black pants or whatever that's worth. I think that'd be clean. I actually didn't like the all black uniforms as much as I thought I would. Like, I really have been beating the drum for years now about getting all black uniforms. I don't know. They weren't what I was expecting, I guess. Maybe a smoke gray would have been better. What about you, Lou? And I love the helmet. I think maybe it's the best helmet.
I don't hate the helmet. There were times in that Dallas game that I actually did like the all black until they started playing like darkness. Don't know if I like the all white. When the Coolies and the Portis and they were going on those runs and they were wearing all white, it looked better then. It looked better then. Yeah. That game yesterday, I don't know if I like the all white. It's just the style thing for me. I think that all black was kind of cool. But I think as long as you keep the standard, burgundy tops and white bottoms, I think that is going to be what most fans resonate with. But I think that marketing needs to be secondary, and putting a winning product, I don't care what you wear, in the social media. How do you like this? Ooh, we on fire and everything like that, wearing all that stuff, and then you put up 3 points. I don't. Merch is good, but merch has to be symbiotic with performance. Right now, I don't. The helmet is good. I do like the classic W. It does look nice on there. But everything else, it's just it's interesting to hear what fans have to say about the uniform.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I would have preferred if they just stayed the Washington football team. They could have still rocked the W on the helmet, the same exact, like everything could have been exactly the same, and they could have just been the Washington football team. I would have preferred that, but it's a little late for all that. So, gentlemen, I think that does. We're almost at an hour. I didn't even realize. It has been great, man. I appreciate both of you for coming on. Lou, are there certain days that the show comes out on YouTube, or what?
No, it's a good thing. It's not a show. It's just a channel. I mean, if you go there now and subscribe, Holder Hangout, you can see everything that I've done with Doc Walker, Darryl Green, Mark Mosley, Fred Smoot, Doc Walker, got, Ryan Kerrigan when he retired, all up until just recently. I was in the locker room talking to Jonathan Allen and Jamin Davis, which is another interesting dynamic, because when I am very impressed with that young man, because when that defensive coordinator and the head coach basically called him out in the media after a win in week 1, I was like, whoa, that's a slippery slope, because where do you go if you do bad? Are you going to do the same thing? Right. So, and honestly, I didn't hear any apologies or anything the next day. They doubled down on it. They said, yo, he needs to play better. So if they're doing that with that player, I think they should be able to do that with all players, right? So I don't understand why that Ron Rivera had to apologize. He spoke his truth. He actually was correct, right? Because he said the next day that the quarterback is the most important position on the field, right? Well, if it's the most important position on the field, then yes. When you said quarterback now, where we, again, and we all have to be stewards of our own craft, everything that went out was him just saying quarterback. That was the end of the bite, right? There was more than what he said, right? Sure. But you hear the question from the reporter, and all you hear is quarterback, and that was the clickbait that went out, right? Yes. So frustrating, because there was more about what he said, right? But it wasn't reported. It was just quarterback, and that's how the bite ended, right? And that's what I don't like about this current journalism now. Everybody's trying to get that thing to incite stuff. True. But he said a lot more after that. What I was a little taken back was when we went out there the next day, he said he apologized and had a bad day. I was like, what do you need to apologize for? You said the truth. And Carson Wentz is a grown man. I don't think he needed to apologize to the team. You didn't apologize to Jamin Davis. You said, yo, you need to play better. So, and actually, he has played better. Yes. He has played better. So maybe Carson Wentz needed to hear that and say, yo, that's how it would have been cool for him to say, I said what I said. That's how I meant it. Some of you guys took it out of context, whatever. I don't think an apology to the team was necessary. I don't know. But then again, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what the dynamics are. I just feel that there was just in the Holder Hangout when I interviewed him, I asked him about that. He was just straight up Jamin Davis. I like this young man. He took the adversity and went with it. I like Derek Foster. I like him. Some of these guys are hungry, right? So to answer your question, there is no showtime for it. You can go and look through anything you want, you want at any time to check out the Holder Hangout.
Very good. And we'll include the link to that when this goes out. And we'll let you know I love what you guys do over at the urban sports scene for sure.
Yeah, bro.
Thank you.
Keep bringing the heat. That's what I love about these formats, that I can, Doug and you, everybody now has a chance to get their own, and that's the best thing now about these new formats. And I appreciate you having me on to talk. I really do.
I appreciate it. I'm honored to have you today, Lou. Thank you. All right, fellas. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.